Warmer days are just around the corner. And if you've always been meaning to try fly fishing, there's no better time than right now to start getting ready. And there's no better introduction into the world of fly fishing than catching bass on the fly. And while I'm no expert on fly fishing or bass fishing, I have caught my share in the recent past, mostly with the help of my brother Mark, who is an expert at both. In fact, he once held a line class world record for a bass on a fly rod. So I'd just like to share with you some of the things I've learned from him and some things I've discovered on my own fly fishing for bass. The most important of which is, fly fishing is fun. And sometimes it's the best way to catch a bass. It's the ultimate finesse technique. And it's not as difficult as most people seem to think it is. At least not during the bass pre-spawn bite, which is what happens when the water starts to warm up after winter has overstayed its welcome. At Lake Pueblo in the spring, bass move from deep water to warmer shallow flats or coves, where they will eventually spawn. But along the way, they hold up around points, ledges, or other structure to feed up, as they don't usually feed during the spawn. These spots are usually not far from shore, so you don't need to know how to cast very far. During this time, the main sources of food for bass are crayfish and baitfish. So at Pueblo, I tend to focus on rocky points in between the deep water of the main lake and the shallow spawning grounds. Crayfish will begin to venture out from under those rocks as the water warms. And the rocky points are a good place for bass to ambush schools of shad as they make their way to the warmer shallow water. If there's any kind of cover, logs, stumps, weeds, or boulders near the rocky point, fish it as if you know there's a bass hiding in there somewhere. There probably is. At the North Shore Marina, there's a channel that runs from the deep water of the main lake toward the launch ramp. There are also lesser channels that run from the deep channel up into the coves. The shale shoreline steps down into the lake in a series of ledges that are often undercut enough to hide bass on their spawning journey. So, bass will move from their deep winter layers along the deep channel and stage up at the main lake points. They'll feed up for a while and then move to the shallower secondary points, using the channels for a highway and the ledges like a fence line. They'll feed up at the secondary points until water temperature and Mother Nature tell them that it's time to move into the shallows to spawn. But some fish will spawn in 50-degree water, some in water as warm as 70 degrees, so they don't all spawn at the same time. During this time, I use slow, subtle movements of the fly until a bass noses down on it. If his nose is down and his tail is up, you're in business. Sometimes I'll let the bass stare at the fly for a little bit before making the fly seem like it's trying to get away. A bass chasing your fly will often get other bass to come around to see what all the commotion is about. And once they start competing for your fly, you're in for a good day. If they seem disinterested, keep throwing near them. I've watched my brother drop a fly in front of a big bass for an hour before it finally got angry and attacked his fly. I don't have that kind of patience. I usually fish weighted crayfish flies on a 5-weight fly rod with floating line and tapered leader to 10-pound test. But use what you got. You can buy crayfish flies or baitfish flies at Sportsman's Warehouse, Angler's Covey, Shields, or Bass Pro Shop. Just make sure they're weighted. The smaller males will move in first, but the larger females will be somewhere close behind, either at the previous staging area or just behind the males in deeper water. So unless you're fishing a bass you can see, fish deep to shallow. And don't forget to fish the ledges. Just because you can't see fish doesn't mean they're not there. Another fun thing about fly fishing is tying your own flies. There's no bigger thrill than catching a bass on a fly you tied yourself. But I suppose that can wait. Now dig up your dad's old dusty fly rod, buy some new leader and a couple of flies, and good luck out there.